Okay, so here with exercise 3, I wanted to give you a little bit of feedback on some of the things I was noticing on the compositions here. So this is one of the multi-cut shots. And so let's kind of look at it. So there are several points where um, the, um, the camera is moving in almost all of them, right? So that's the thing first that's kind of disorienting, especially that move right here. Like that's just kind of, whoa, what just happened? Because it's not only is the camera moving, but the box is moving at the same time, right? And then we immediately cut to another shot that I believe is probably between those are so fast and the camera's constantly moving that I don't have a point of reference, right? So that's one of the things you have to watch out for is disorienting the user. So just by and large, a lot of people always just move the camera too much, and even though this is a cut shot, every shot except for I think the one that's on the ground there, and I think it does move a little bit too. Yeah, they all move, and they're all moving like all the time. So that's one of the issues that just gets disorienting for the viewer to watch. And I saw a little bit too much of that. There was just a little bit too much camera movement. Let me see if I can dig around here and figure out. I believe it was this one. So we start here, looking at the box, and then twirl all the way around to here to catch that next shot. And although, like, by itself, this doesn't feel like a bad camera move, it just happens so fast, and it's covering such a big area. Also, if we look right here in this frame, let me pause it on that frame, like right here on this frame, like that corner of the box is all we're seeing of it. So we're just for a little while just focusing out here in space. So there's a lot of, here's another one where all we're seeing is kind of the bottom of the box. And again, that's why this framing gets confusing sometimes. So let's look at some other things. Yeah, so here's one that was like, it was working really good, except for right here, like right here. Like we're so close to this being framed well, right? We see so much of this information back behind the box, but even here, like the box kind of jumps out of frame, and so the thing that we're really looking at is up here, like part of it even being cut off, and we're seeing all this stuff in the background, and that's nice, but I mean, like sometimes it's nice to be able to see the things that are in the background, but let's see if this will work. But if we divide this up into thirds again, ignore my inability to draw a straight line here. Just by moving the camera a little bit, we could have gotten that box right here, and we still would have gotten most of this rest of this environment stuff down here in the bottom corner. So just a very slight camera change to keep our focus in the right spot, I think would have helped. Let me close that one down so I don't get confused about which ones I've looked at. So this one was an interesting solution. It feels like we're moving up through here, but really we're not. I think the camera's setting in one spot. It's maybe rotating a little bit, but it's also zooming in, right? And so this kind of gets that like home camcorder feel, right? You start seeing the perspective change. The interesting thing about this, though, is it actually starts flattening out. So I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. I just want to kind of point it out so you can use it intentionally. Right here we have a lot of depth in it, right? We really see that going off into the distance. By the time we get to the end here, this is like this piece is almost as big as this piece and vice versa. So what we did is we just kind of flattened out that distance. We kind of shortened that distance. So I think a combination of a zoom and a little bit more of a push on the camera would have worked better. And again, like when we get to here, we just could have nudged that a little bit more toward this area here, the box, or the way the camera is positioned, a little bit more toward this area here, just to get that hitting on one of the thirds a little bit better. So here's sort of another alternative version of that, which is let's follow the box up the chain here. And actually, I think the framing is pretty good on this. The only thing that is, and this was an issue I saw on several people's, the only issue with this is the camera kind of seems to, it's almost like it has too many keyframes, right? Like it's keyframe, 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 keyframe. And I can feel every one of them for two reasons. One's because they hit it kind of hard. So we played with the graph editor, and if you have to have it sort of swaying from side to side there, I think we could soften those a little bit, right? You could ease into this a little bit more, maybe not go as sharply back here, right? Maybe it's going a little too far. Maybe you could pull some of this off with some rotation instead of a whole movement from side to side, right? And the other thing is the keyframes seem to hit exactly at the same time that the box does. It's like they were keyed together, and we change directions with the box too. So we hit at that same point and change directions with the box, almost in the same exact frame. So it's like I feel the keyframes of the camera, and so that's not, again, that's not always bad, but it needs to be a conscious choice, not something that happens accidentally as you're keying it. So think about that. I think this could have been a little bit more effective if I didn't feel the keyframes quite as hard, because it's actually kind of neat. You keep good framing, it's just like the camera just kind of bounces a little bit too much. So there were a whole lot of really good ones in this one, but there was a whole lot of them that got like 90 or 95% there. You know, like there was still just a little bit more tweaking on the camera just to kind of capture those last little things. There were a lot of them that were, let me see if I can find one, that were just showing a touch too much of the scene, more than we really needed for the entire shot. Let me see what this one is, if this is what I'm thinking of. And these happened a lot on the single cameras, that we would see the, sorry, QuickTime seems to be opening slowly. Yeah, I think this is an example of one where like we just always see everything. And so it's nice that we get to see the entire shot, right? But if we'd have pushed in just a touch more and framed it a little bit nicer and then just had a really slow camera move across it, we could have gotten a lot more out of that as well. Another option is just, you know, right now we're looking at it pretty much from the side. If we had angled it a little bit differently, you know, we could have saw it with maybe a little bit more depth to it instead of just this, like, this thing in the middle and then the background. And so, like, I think that this shows it all to us, but not really in the most exciting way. Does that make sense? So I saw a bunch of that, let's see if this is one. Yeah, this has got the cuts in it, but like in this shot, we have him jumping from there to there, right? And we see so much of everything else. Like, it's rendering square too. Maybe you could play around with the framing to get a better composition in this. But I mean, why is there so much room over here? Like, what if we'd have framed this more like, say like that, you know, as it jumps across, right? Like, why do we get so much room to see all this stuff that isn't really important, you know? And so that's, you know, kind of tightening those shots up a little bit. Again, like the camera's in a good place, it's almost there. It's just that last, like, I don't know, 5% of figuring out how to make this communicate as as effectively as possible. Like that's the stuff that I think try to be as conscious as you can of it. This is how the viewer is going to see it, and they don't always need to see everything. They just need to see enough for you to communicate your idea. Okay, so this is the picking out your framing, and like I said, if you were painting a picture, you're not going to waste time on the stuff that isn't necessary, because painting is hard. Unfortunately, placing a camera is maybe a little too easy inside of Maya. If it were much more difficult, people would be a little bit more painstaking about how they frame that up to make sure that they're not just choosing an easy solution. So that's where I saw a lot of people just needing sort of that last 5% of thought in the process of setting up the camera. But overall, pretty good results. So I just wanted to kind of keep you on your toes thinking about that a little bit more. I can't remember specifically if people got a lot of uh, points counted off for having too big of files, but I had a couple of people who didn't have a file for that one. So that pulled down some grades a little bit. So I didn't have any videos for some people. So check your grades, and then if you think your grade's too low, go check your file size, because that may be part of the reason. So let me know if you have any questions, and thanks for watching. Bye.